Forward to this meeting today. It's been an interesting couple of years, and I started my day by going to the National Democratic Women's Club, donating pussy hats that I have knitted in preparation for the January 19th.
Well, it's not so clear that's going to happen.
Well, there will be a march where we will wear pussy hats. And I'd like to make that reference because it started a wonderful movement and culminating in the midterm election. Women voted, women ran for office at the federal, state house, and state legislative bodies. It was a wonderful turnout, and our wonderful presenters are going to talk about the post-election results and the impact on women and family issues. I'm going to introduce the three speakers. We're going to start with Catherine Beam. You have her bio in the handout that Sue gave you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of YWCA USA. For those of you who are not familiar with our history, YWCA celebrated our 160th year, or anniversary this year. We are currently a network of 210 local YWCAs, all independent 501c3 organizations across 46 states and the District of Columbia. We have, each of those local associations is unified under a mission to eliminate racism and empower women, but can look really different at a local or community level. Each of them provides services that are needed in their community, and just over half of our local associations provide domestic violence or sexual assault prevention services. We're the largest network of domestic violence and sexual assault service providers in the country, so a very large network. And half of our local associations provide child care, most of that in the early years, although some of them are also after school or summer programs. About 40% of our local associations provide housing, and that could be long-term housing for older women, it could be homeless shelters, it could be shelter and services for domestic violence survivors, kind of a variety of constructs of what that housing looks like. And then a large expanse of our network provides empowerment and opportunity programs, whether that's job training or healthy relationship building, kind of a variety of opportunities for girls and women in their communities. Again, all unified under that banner of eliminating racism and empowering women. This year, as we approached the election time, we decided to redo a survey that we initially did in 2012 with Celinda Lake to try to assess what women's top concerns were, as well as some of the legislative priorities that they have for a new Congress. And I've shared with everyone a summary of that, an outline of the findings in that report. And as Jeanette shared, there's a slide deck that's the full report that's available on our website. So you can go to ywcavote.org and access the full slide deck. This is a national survey of American women intended to really help us identify public policy priorities as part of our civic engagement effort. We oversampled 4 different subgroups of women of color. So we oversampled Black women, Latinas, Native American women, and Asian Pacific Islander women, trying to make sure that, especially as an organization that really tries to work at the intersection between race and gender, that we were adequately as Celinda has said in a couple of public settings, appropriately sampling women of color to make sure that that their voices are heard, both in terms of what they're concerned about and what their policy priorities are. This was actually a bipartisan effort. So Celinda Lake was our main researcher, but she also partnered with Linda Duvall from American Viewpoint because we were trying to have a bipartisan approach to make sure that we weren't slanting things one way or the other, especially as a 501c3 who is bipartisan in nature. And the findings of this report are very compelling. They paint a picture that highlights that the lives of women across race, age, education, and partisan affiliation are deeply connected in terms of their needs and concerns for themselves, their families, and their communities. Moreover, there is broad, deep, and bipartisan support among women that Congress should take action on strengthening equal pay laws, renewing the Violence Against Women Act, protecting the Affordable Care Act, and protecting Roe versus Wade, and much, much more. And what I'd like to spend a few minutes just walking you through are some of the outline of the findings, just to share what those top line messages are, because I think that they set a context for Layla and Jan to talk about priorities, and you'll be able to see alignment between what women want and what the agenda of different organizations is coming into this. So first and foremost, there's broad and deep support among women that Congress should act on each of the policy issues that we tested. At a time when it seems like, and as apparently we are very divided by politics, women are actually remarkably united in terms of what they are concerned about and what they want Congress to act on, regardless of whether they identify as Democrat, Republican, or Independent. Solid majorities of Democratic, Independent, and Republican women agree that Congress should take action in the economic arena to strengthen equal pay laws, and the civil rights arena to pass legislation to end racial profiling, and also to take action on immigration reforms, including ending family separation and passage of the DREAM Act. In the health and safety arena, renewing VAWA, protecting the Affordable Care Act, protecting Roe versus Wade, and passing legislation to address the physical and mental health needs of women and girls. And then in the caregiving realm, passing things like the Child Care for Working Families Act to expand access to affordable, high-quality child care, and passing paid family and medical leave legislation. Again, this is women across age, across education level, across race, and across party affiliation share these concerns and these demands from Congress. Support is particularly strong in two areas: for strengthening equal pay laws, where 79% of all women strongly support and 90% of women support passing of legislation to strengthen equal pay laws. And the second area is renewing the Violence Against Women Act. So addressing gender-based violence enjoys 75% of women strongly support passing legislation like VAWA, and it gets close to 90% when you go to the support category. This reflects this priority around the Violence Against Women Act, really reflects the very clear concerns about safety that women expressed in this survey. It's consistent with broadly shared concerns about sexual and domestic violence and sexual harassment and women's experiences of discrimination. Women also noted throughout the survey broad and deep concerns about keeping themselves and their families safe from gun violence. This is a top concern for all women and for very specific subgroups of women. So for millennial women, it's top of the charts. White, Black, Latina, API, and Native American women. Across all of the subgroups, women rated concern about gun violence very highly. And this is one of the more notable new things in this survey as opposed to 2012. There is also very strong support at a 68% strongly supporting for passing the Ending Racial Profiling Act. In terms of experience with discrimination, we found that there was an increase in the prevalence of women reporting that they had experienced discrimination. And this represents a 9% increase from 2012. Black, Latina, and API women experienced racial discrimination at even higher rates than they experienced gender discrimination. And half of millennials and women ages 30 to 39 say they've experienced gender discrimination. So despite our awareness raising, despite the fact that we are in 2018, the experience of gender discrimination, the experience of racial discrimination remains prevalent for women. Access to health care is another key area, or bucket, if you will, that women express great concerns about. There are deep concerns about medical expenses and about having access to affordable and secure health care. There's broad and deep support, as I said earlier, for protecting the ACA. Women are also very concerned about having access to the full range of reproductive health care. Women across race and age cohorts strongly agree on protecting Roe versus Wade and passing legislation to meet physical and mental health needs of women and girls. So something like the Trauma-Informed Care Act is something that would fall in that category. And notably, Republican women support action around health care, including protecting the ACA and Roe versus Wade, at 54% agreeing, 39% strongly agreeing. Women also expressed concerns about keeping themselves and their families safe from opioid addiction, which is also a link up with that concern about access to physical and mental health care needs. The economic agenda for women, as reflected by such overwhelming support for strengthening equal pay laws, is very notable. So despite reports that you hear from some quadrants about a raging economic recovery, women are still overwhelmingly worried about their economic status in the United States. Women conveyed a lot of worries about things like medical expenses, health insurance, affordable housing, being able to afford their rent or mortgage, access to paid family and medical leave, and worrying that their income isn't enough to take care of their families. With these economic concerns in mind, women are again prioritizing equal pay legislation and protecting access to health care and paid family and medical leave. On the immigration front, a majority of women support legislation to end family separation, to end family detention, to pass the DREAM Act, and to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Women, including Republican women, want Congress to act on these specific immigration policies. And the very high levels of support, this is just of note, the very high levels of support for other policy solutions that you'll see in our report showing like 65, 75, 85% strong support compared to the immigration levels of being in the 50s, 55, 52% strong support. Those differentials shouldn't overshadow the consensus that exists among women that Congress should pass legislation to end family separation, end family detention, pass the DREAM Act, and pass comprehensive immigration reform. I like to say that in any other survey, those immigration findings could have been a headline. So just despite the differential in number, there is still very strong support for immigration reform. We've also broken down things, you'll find slides in the actual report that let you take a snapshot of the different racial subgroups and millennial women so that you can get a sense within these broad brushstrokes of where women share concerns and policy priorities. You'll be able to look at their experiences of gender discrimination, what their concerns are, and what their congressional priorities are. But again, the top line messages are economics, healthcare, making sure we strengthen equal pay law, gender-based violence, gun violence. Those are top of mind for women heading into the next congressional session.